Hi there, this is Mar Haddad here again. We have to continue our discussion about the comparison between the IP version 4 and the IP version 6. And in this lecture, I have to speak about the features or the characteristics that are available on the IP version 6. So let's directly start with those features. The first thing that we need to know about the IP version 6 is that there is no more broadcast traffic. So no more broadcast on IP version 6. The only thing that we have now, which is a place of the broadcast, is the multicast. But now can someone say, well, how come? Because we know that there are a lot of protocols which works on the broadcast, like ARP, for example, ARP request and ARP reply. That's something we know from IP version 4. So ARP is not also available anymore on IP version 6 because it works on the broadcast. So IP version 6 has something similar to ARP, but is not anymore ARP. So if you want to know what ARP is nothing more than mapping the IP to the MAC address. So if a device wants to send to a destination and he knows what is the destination IP, but he doesn't know what is the destination MAC, you make an ARP request requesting for the MAC address of the destination. Then the destination, when it receives, it would send the ARP reply. Now the ARP request is always broadcast. That's on IP version 4. But this is not anymore available on the IP version 6 because broadcast is not possible on IP version 6. So there is no broadcast on IP version 6. The other thing is that we have on the IP version 6 what we call it the stateless auto configuration. So stateless auto configuration is something like a mini DHCP server, and we are going to also configure that on the MikroTik router because it's also possible to make on the MikroTik router the stateless auto configuration. So, of course, also you can still do the DHCP server, and on IP version 6, which we call it DHCP version 6, you can still do it, but also there is another way, which we call it Slack, and that's something I'm going to explain to you later in this course, how you can configure Slack on the MikroTik router. Now, the third feature that we have is mobility. What does it mean, mobility? Here they say that IP version 6 has a built-in support for mobile devices. Hosts will be able to move from one network to another and keep their current IP version 6 address. So you can imagine, let's say if you are now sitting at home and you have an IP version 6 IP address on your computer, on your laptop, and then you move yourself from your home and you go to the company which also works on IP version 6, then you don't need anymore for the IP address which is on your computer or on your laptop to be changed. You can still use the same IP address and then you can still be connected to the internet. So that's what mobility is. The feature number 4 is that we don't have any more NAT and PAT. So the idea of network address translation that we had on the IP version 4 is not anymore available on the IP version 6. Why? Because we do have a big number of IP version 6 now. So the numbers of the IPs on IP version 6 is very high. So there is no more need to do the NAT and PAT. Now the feature number 5 is about IPsec. IPsec is a protocol suite that is available on IP version 4. You can run IPsec on IP version 4, but also you can, or as if you don't want to run it, you can also don't run it on IP version 4. But on IP version 6, IPsec is always enabled. It's always there. It is with the IP version 6. So that's to make more security for your IP version 6. So of course, IPsec is a big topic that I already have also a course speaking about IPsec, about everything which is about IPsec. But on the IP version 6, I'm going to show you how you can configure it, but we are not really going to go through a lot of details about IPsec as a protocol by itself. So if you want to know more about IPsec, you can join my other course which talk about IPsec, which is also about MikroTik IPsec. Then you can learn how IPsec work and all the concept behind IPsec. But just for now, it's important to know that this protocol is always running with the IP version 6. Now, the feature number 6 is that it has improved header, which means that IP version 6 header is simpler and doesn't require checksum. So compared to IP version 4, the header is bigger there, but on IP version 6 is simpler. Okay, so that's also a very nice feature because, you know, as you have less headers, so it's just simpler, then you can have more bandwidth because then you don't have a lot of overhead on your traffic anymore. And the last characteristic on IP version 6 is about the migration tools. Now, here they're saying you have IP version 4 and IP version 6, and both are not compatible. So you need some migration tools such as 6 to 4 tunnel and dual stack. So you know that IP version 4 will not go away very fast, because as to now, most of the networks that are connected to IP version 4, even though that there are now transition to go to IP version 6, but the majority of the networks now on the internet are on IP version 4. Now, how can we do in a way to work with the network on IP version 6 with network on IP version 4? So that's what is called the migration tool. So migration tool is to have, for example, on our network, to be able to reach to the networks which are on IP version 4, but also to reach to the networks which are on IP version 6. So there are different type of migration tools that we can use, something like 6 to 4 tunnel, the dual stack. So 6 to 4 tunnel, that means you make tunneling. If you have, for example, a IP version 4 network, so you can make tunneling to be able to reach the IP version 6 network. So that's something I'm going to explain to you in this course. Also, we're going to do a lab about the 6 to 4 tunnel. But also the dual stack. Dual stack means that at the same time, you can reach networks which are on IP version 6 and networks which are on IP version 4. When I say networks, I mean the networks which are on the internet. So these are the characteristics that are very important to remember about the IP version 6. So as a summary, there is no broadcast anymore on IP version 6. There is the stateless auto configuration. The mobility is there. That means the same IP, you can use it wherever you go. It's the same IP on IP version 6. There is no more NAT and PAT. And the IPsec is always with IP version 6. And the header on IP version 6 is better. And then you have the migration tools to be able to reach the networks of IP version 4 and the network of IP version 6. So this is the whole things that I wanted to explain in this lecture. I hope that this lecture was informative for you, and I will see you in the upcoming lecture.